This is huge news. There's a letter released by Jim Jordan showing that what's his name? Michael Morell, is that his name? Former CIA director, outright said that he told people the Hunter Biden laptop was disinformation because he wanted to help Joe Biden win.
Right. At the direction of Tony Blinken, who's now the Secretary of State.
And I think he talked to Biden too, didn't he?
Yeah. I think, Biden was involved, but it was through the intermediary of Tony Blinken, who only, of course, talk about people like Mayor Pete getting promoted. Tony Blinken, of course, now in a very prime position there as Secretary of State. And this story does not get covered very, very much in the corporate media these days. I mean, this came out in a House Judiciary panel. Mike Morell, not a partisan guy at all, but just is asked to tell what happened here.
No, he is. I mean, he said he wanted Biden to win.
Mike Morell, well, yes, but not, he was doing the bidding of Tony Blinken, a trustworthy person. Let's just say that. I mean, this is not someone who's like, trying to right. I mean, to your point, a guy from the left is essentially admitting to what he was doing. That story, I mean, again, a companion to the Hunter Biden laptop lack of coverage was that story, which the way that, yes, CNN's of the world, and I've talked to a lot of people at CNN about this. Okay, you didn't say it was Russian disinformation, but you put that letter out there with people.
They said it was 50
all the
former agents
of Russian, and those people who you pay in many instances, people like Clapper and Brennan, are getting paychecks from MSNBC and CNN. They're the ones who are telling you, look, looks like Russian disinformation to us. We're the experts, experts again.
Take a look at this. We got this story from the Examiner. It says Morell, who testified to Congress earlier this month about the laptop letter, said he thought now Secretary of State Antony Blinken wanted the baseless claims of Russian involvement in the saga made public. The former Obama acting CIA director told House investigators that before his October 17th call with Blinken, he had no intention to write the October 19th Hunter Biden laptop letter, and testified yes and absolutely when asked if the call with Blinken, who was the top advisor for Biden's 2020 campaign, was what triggered that intent in you. Morell also said in a recent transcribed interview with congressional investigators that it was his guess that Blinken called him to talk about the Hunter Biden laptop because the future Secretary of State wanted it out in the public that the Russians were somehow involved in the saga. He also testified that one of the two reasons he helped put the letter together was to help now President Joe Biden, quote, because I wanted him to win the election. Hey, how about that? What a time to be alive, huh?
Insane. And no punishment for blatant election interference. But, a question that I have is these guys weaponize this entire process to win the 2020 election, right? You got a bunch of former intel guys partnering with social media, engaging in this clear manipulation of multiple systems just to get their guy in. They were able to, even if you don't want to discuss the issue of election fraud, they were able to weaponize this system enough to be able to prevent Trump from getting reelected when he wielded the full power of the executive branch of the United States government. What has changed? And let me add one other point in here, too. We have numerous states like Pennsylvania that change election laws in the run up to the election to give Democrats an advantage and prevent Trump from getting in. None of this stuff
Republicans were involved in that.
Right. So what has changed since 2020 that this deep state apparatus would allow him back in now when they've already weaponized the system to prevent him from getting in 2020?
Yeah.
Like, what's the play?
I don't know if I would phrase it as prevent him. I think what they're trying to do is slant things as heavily as possible in their favor. And that, I think, is the game. And I think Republicans need to pay attention to that. They spent too long coming out screaming fraud, 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 instead of screaming, how are they getting these ballots? How are they doing it? And then just doing the same thing. Ballot chasing, harvesting. Now Trump is coming out and being like, we're going to do the same thing. Now you're hearing Republicans come out and say, OK, we figured it out. We're going to play the game they're playing. Now I think these advantages may be lost because if Republicans actually start playing the same game, it's going to slowly balance out, though universal mail-in voting greatly advantages Democrats in dense populated areas. And it's very hard for people in rural areas to get the word out and things like that. But I think Republicans can now, understanding what happened in the past two elections, start utilizing that properly. So we'll see. I don't want to be blackpilled on this one.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, the last two elections, because that clearly was a factor in 2022 also in the midterms.
Absolutely.
I mean, the fact that they hadn't made those adjustments at that point was a clear thing. But I honestly think, going back to something you said earlier about the social media incentives, what was the real story about this? I mean, why did so many in the media not cover this? When I went back and started looking for the book about why was the press covered that, why do they cover it this way? There were people like Maggie Haberman at the New York Times who linked to the New York Post, just said, I question the sourcing of it. I don't know, this seems a little shady. And she got trending on Twitter as MAGA Haberman because she linked to the New York Post, even because she was, and so Jake Sherman, who's now at Punchbowl, he was at Politico at the time.
MAGA Haberman.
Yeah, he tweets it also. I wonder if the Biden campaign will respond to this. He gets pilloried by people, is forced to delete it, and apologizes for daring to link to the New York Post. So there's such a guilt that happens. Yeah. And there's no backbone by a lot of these journalists. And if they get a bunch of people yelling at them on Twitter, they're going to just do what the mob says. And so that's not changing either. That's only getting worse, I think, in this new era.
Yeah, I think Republicans are starting to wake up, and just some people I've talked to sort of behind the scenes. There's this realization that we have to do more than we've done in the past to win elections. We got to do the ballot harvesting, but in general, we have to sort of build out just a bigger ground game, because Democrats have $1 billion machine that's been in place for decades. Republicans don't have that. Republicans have a system where the donor class sort of gives money to the RNC, who doles it out how they see fit, where on the Democrat side, they have all these organizations that have been built out at the grassroots level. These billionaire donors give to those organizations, and the party is a little bit further down the list. So there's a whole machine apparatus that needs to be built on the right. But it seems like people are more inclined to actually do the work right now and want to build those things out. Scott Pressler is a guy who's running across the country right now trying to register voters, trying to spread the word about ballot harvesting and do what he can to build those systems out. And I think as far as what I'm seeing, even just this week, Charlie Kirk posted about this. There's more of a focus now on doing the work that's needed to build out those systems to try to give Trump the best chance, or whoever is the nominee, most likely Trump, but whatever Republican candidate is the best chance to win the election next year.
But here's the plan. We need to use their platform against them. The strategies they've used against us, we're going to use against them. So when they say vote blue no matter who, here's the pitch. Donald Trump runs as a Democrat. We all then vote for him in the primary, and now they have to vote for him.
They literally have no choice.
Checkmate,
Wow.
Democrats.
It's beautiful.
That's right. It's going to be like, I'm sorry, vote blue no matter who. And they're like, but Donald Trump, those are your rules. And then they're going to have to press the button for Trump. Oh, and that's how he wins. But it is funny that they say vote blue no matter who, because it clearly shows that you could put literally anything in the office. They don't care as long as they're hurting you. That's crazy.
Yeah, when was the last time Fetterman was seen?
Recently. I mean, it was kind of sad.
Yeah.
I mean, really, really sad.
Tried to read a statement.
Legitimately
Yeah.
sad. Yeah, he's talking really weird. He's struggling to form words. He clearly can't understand the responses he's getting, and then he just ignores them.
Right.
He'll ask a question. He'll be like, "Can you explain to me why and if Biden is president?" And then they say something, and he goes, "Now, have you seen?" And it's like, well, are you going to answer the first thing they said?
Right.
Like, he just didn't happen, I guess.
Yeah, and that's with someone literally running around next to him with a screen in front of him that has the words, the closed captioning happening, and still is not really comprehending. No, but
I'll take whatever they can get as long as it's not a Republican.
Yeah, well, you got Biden now too, right? Running again, and it's like, really? Are we doing this? I mean, this is
It's hilarious, dude. I don't think Biden can win. I don't know. I will be laughing come 2024 when I find out I'm wrong or whatever. But Biden had the COVID lockdown advantage.
Right.
He didn't do anything or go anywhere. Now they're saying there's going to be no debates. Have you guys heard this?
Yeah.
No debates at all. None.
On either side.
On either side. It's none. This is crazy. But whatever, I guess.
Trump's going to try to get out of him. But I mean, there's got to be RNC debates. He obviously is a former president, but he's not the incumbent. So they've got to do RNC debates, and whether he's there or not. DNC, I could, if you really have a field that's Joe Biden, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and Marianne Williamson, I could see them really just saying, yeah, you're on your own. It's going to be Biden here. Although, again, I don't know how you galvanize behind a person that you have.
I got it.
Yeah.
Here's what we'll do. We will host the Democratic debates here at Timcast IRL.
Right here.
But what likely will happen is Biden won't come. But guess what? I am willing to bet RFK Jr. will.
Yeah.
And so would Marianne Williamson.
For sure. Yeah.
And if we're like, look, we'll do we'll get a forum, we'll rent a building, we'll get an actual theater, we'll have anyone who wants to run. And the interesting thing is, these are prominent figures, RFK Jr. and Marianne Williamson, But I wonder if any other establishment Democrat who wants to run would actually come.
Yeah.
Right? Isn't who else is running? What's his face? The man, I don't know.
On the Democrat side?
Yeah.
I feel like I don't know if there's anyone else. Have you interviewed RFK?
Yeah. Yes. Here we go. Hutchinson.
He's on the GOP.
Oh, it's GOP.
Yeah, Asa Hutchinson. Yeah.
Oh, whoops! I'm an idiot.
No, he's
Okay, he's running as a Republican.
He's establishment enough that he.
Right, I know. I was just like, he's one of those guys, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a pretty never Trumper, and so he fits that mold.
You see how I got confused?
Yes, if you spend all your days in like cable news green rooms, then you're basically a Democrat at this point,
Right.
which is what Asa Hutchinson.
So is it just RFK Jr. then and Marianne Williamson?
I think so far.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we've reached out to RFK Jr.'s team, and
He'd be a great. I mean, he's a fascinating guy. Super
Yeah.
smart. We've at the Megyn Kelly show, we've interviewed him a couple times, and had to keep an eye out to make sure we could keep it all live on YouTube and all platforms.
we will do the Democratic debates live on Rumble with Marianne Williamson and RFK Jr. And if Joe Biden will be invited,
Right.
We'll say, hey man, just let us know what you need. You're invited, absolutely. We'll have anything you need to make this debate happen. And then when he says no, he just won't be at the debates.
Right.
So there you go.
Podium, just like any other. I think I'd watch that.
And I think Marianne Williamson and RFK Jr. would have like a legitimate debate. When they had her on, there was so much screwing around. What was it like? Andrew Yang's mic got cut off.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And he's just going like mouthing and like nothing's happening. I explained that if it was Donald Trump and they cut his mic, he would lean over and grab the other person's mic and go, excuse me, my microphone is off. That's Trump. That's why Trump wins, because Trump would not let them silence him, and there's nothing they can do if he's like steps out of line and says, no, I'm talking.
Well, that's the thing. He's polite to people, or he's not polite to people who aren't being polite to him. And so often that's what the establishment depends upon. They crap all over everyone who's an outsider and tries to stand up to them. And then they go, oh, sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. Okay, I'll go along with it. And we saw this with Republicans time and time again. You're racist, you're sexist, you're homophobic, you're terrible. Or they would just ask them questions where that was the subtext. And they'd go, I just want to be very sensitive to your concern. And I want you to know I really do care about you and your values. And Trump would be like, you're an idiot, shut up. It's like, great. That's kind of what they deserve.
Well, Trump's not mean to people who aren't mean to him.
No, that's what I'm saying.
In fact, no. When it came to the bump stock ban, when they go to Trump and they say, let's work together, he goes, okay. And then he agrees with them. If the Democrats went to Trump and they said, you're so smart, your policies are amazing, we think you're going to be the best, here's what you need to do, he'll go, absolutely, I agree, and he would sign it.
In fact, he actually said in the interview with Tucker recently, he was talking about how Gavin Newsom was so nice to him. And the real story is there, Gavin Newsom understood how to play Trump.
Yep.
You be nice to him, you ask for things, and he'll give it to you. And he did. Here's what I need for California. Okay, sure. You flatter him. I mean, you play the game a little bit. But honestly, like I was just going back and watching some of those primary debates with Trump in 2015, 2016.
Masterful.
I mean, it was so great television, and also honestly gets to the point of why the media became what they became, because they were all in on it. CNN and MSNBC, they would put him on all the time. He was on Morning Joe and calling in from the bathroom. He was on, Don Lemon all the time. He was talking to everybody, and they did it because they would love to have him be the nominee, and then they knew he would lose to Hillary, and so they're like, all right, great, let's ride this. It's great ratings. And then they get that shock on November 8th, and they don't know how to deal with it. But in that moment, they were all good for the TV.
I guess Zucker felt personally responsible at CNN.
Yeah.
So he was offended because or ashamed, because there were people being like, they would come to him and say, why did you give him all this airtime? And he was like, we were making money. And so then he made it his mission to just destroy Trump in the press.
Right.
Yeah, and it's hilarious because all they did was expose themselves as biased, destroyed whatever remaining credibility they had, and made people who already like Trump like him a whole lot more.
Yep.
Now, what I find so hilarious about the entire situation is that you're correct that people who flattered Trump seem to get ahead in some sense, and the left could have very easily played him in that way, but because their TDS was so strong, it was like this perfect storm where this weakness of his couldn't really be exploited by them because they were too deranged. They were too histrionic over it, and they were freaking out and screaming, it's Donald Trump! It's like if you were just as dishonest as you always are and tried to flatter him, you might have been able to get some of the things done that you wanted to get done, but you're not capable.
And I say one other thing about Jeff Zucker, because that's what makes it so unique about Donald Trump. I mean, Jeff Zucker and Donald Trump go way back. Donald Trump made Jeff Zucker at NBC because of The Apprentice. It was a huge hit. Jeff Zucker had no hits before that when he ran NBC. Jeff Zucker was one of the many media members who were at Donald Trump's wedding to Melania in 2005. Wow. Katie Couric was there, Matt Lauer, Barbara Walters. You go right on down the line. Elton John performed. I mean, he was part of that world for so long. I mean, he was hosting Saturday Night Live in 2015. He was in that world. He was hosting the Celebrity Apprentice in 2015, and he left and gave Arnold Schwarzenegger a chance to do it right before he announced for running for president. And then to become the turncoat. These people thought they knew him. They thought he was their friend. He was part of that world, and then he turned on him. And that I think it became so personal for so many of those people.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.